Yo, what is up guys? It's me exactly, back bringing you some more daily NBA news for the fans from a fan. But like always, we of course got a lot of things to talk about today, so let's just get right into it. Alright, so the first thing we got to talk about today is the Washington Wizards, as we have gotten even more reports coming out about them over the past 24 to 48 hours. And if you're a Wizards fan, hoping that these are about to be good reports, that your team has now figured it out and that everything's going to be fine, I'm sorry to break it to you, but that's not exactly the case here. As now, an anonymous Washington Wizards player has confirmed that the root of the team's turmoil has stemmed from John Wall, as Stephen A. Smith read a text message from a player on the Washington Wizards live yesterday, and this is what that text message had to say. "We love Scott Brooks, love playing for him. He just can't coach John Wall. John just walks all over him and it frustrates everybody. The way he plays is impossible to play with. We have so many guns, but not enough bullets. If John Wall would just play off the ball and let others eat, we'd be fine. But that's a difficult thing for him to do, and sometimes it's difficult for us to watch." And just when the trade value of John Wall seemingly couldn't get any lower, this happens. And I will say that the teammate who did this, you're not doing yourself any favors by hoping John Wall is getting traded by coming out and lowering his trade value even more. You're only making it harder for the man to get moved, unless you're just a player that's hoping you get traded before John Wall. Maybe you don't think John Wall is going to get traded, so you're saying this like, I'm about to be out, so I can say whatever I want. Anyways, like I said, this report managed to somehow lower the trade value of John Wall even more, because there isn't a single general manager or owner in the league that isn't going to look at this report and second guess whether or not they should be trading or be interested in trading for John Wall. I doubt they'll be saying to themselves, that right there is the guy that we want on our team. And also, I do want to point out that when the player said in this report that John Wall walks all over the head coach Scott Brooks, that actually aligns with another report that we had gotten maybe 2 days ago. A report that said John Wall was cussing out Scott Brooks during a Wizards practice. The way that the anonymous player said this, the way he said that John Wall walks all over Scott Brooks, it leads me to believe that this isn't a one-time thing, that this has been a regular occurrence over the past few years. And that right there really got me thinking. See, a lot of NBA fans have been calling for Scott Brooks to be fired, mainly because the offense that he runs is extremely outdated. Well, a lot of us fans did believe that he needed to go, and if they got a different coach in there, that the Wizards would be a better team. However, after hearing this report, it leads me to believe that Scott Brooks really isn't the problem, and maybe he would like to run a different offense, but John Wall won't let him, once again because Scott Brooks is afraid of John Wall. Now, why on earth is Scott Brooks afraid of John Wall? No one can really be sure, but I think I might know why. It's because John Wall has so much power within the Washington Wizards organization. For all we know, Scott Brooks might only be there because John Wall wants him there, because he knows that he can walk all over Scott Brooks and be able to do whatever he wants with this Washington Wizards team. And Scott Brooks knows that the second he turns on John Wall and the second he stops letting John Wall walk all over him is a second that he loses his job. John Wall demonstrated his power with this Washington Wizards organization last year and this summer. Last year, Marcin Gortat said, "I had enough," and he publicly took some shots at John Wall. What did John Wall respond by doing? He responded by going to the Wizards management and ownership saying, "We need a change." And next thing you know, the Wizards traded away Marcin Gortat. So Brooks knows that if he ever crosses John Wall, the same thing's going to happen to him. He's going to be out of a job. So that's where I believe this whole dynamic of Scott Brooks being afraid and John Wall being the problem comes from. However, with all of that being said, I think this is where some teams out there could maybe use this to their advantage. Like I said, reports like this will for sure scare away a lot of NBA teams from trying to trade for John Wall. However, there still will be a few teams out there that are interested in trading for John Wall, and those teams can use this report to lower the trade value of John Wall. Because what they might realize is, even though John Wall is the problem on the Washington Wizards, if they trade for him, that wouldn't be the case anymore, since the only way John Wall is able to get away with what he's been able to get away with the Washington Wizards is because he has all of the power in that organization. He has owner, coach, and management in his pocket. He can do whatever he wants. If he were traded to a new team though, preferably a team that already has an established culture and maybe has at least one other established star player as well, John Wall wouldn't be able to do that. He can't just go to a new team and immediately start doing whatever he wants, start running his own offense. No, he's going to have to fit into the system that he was just traded to. This is just an example here, but imagine if John Wall got traded to the San Antonio Spurs, and then he was trying to run things in San Antonio the same way he was running things in Washington. We all know there's no way that will be allowed to fly. But that's why I also say that it's important for any team that's interested in trading for John Wall to have an established culture and an established star in place, because if they don't, then over time, John Wall very could do the same thing to the team he gets traded to that he did to the Washington Wizards. Next up in the news, speaking of the Washington Wizards, we got reports out yesterday saying that the Charlotte Hornets are in trade talks with the Washington Wizards about Bradley Beal. And I find this report interesting for a couple of reasons. The first reason is it pretty much confirms the report that we talked about yesterday saying that Michael Jordan is hellbent on keeping Kemba Walker once free agency comes around. That the Hornets aren't trying to rebuild and they're still trying to build a team around Kemba Walker that they feel can compete in the Eastern Conference. If this wasn't the case, they would have no interest in Bradley Beal and they'd be more so looking to unload the contracts of Nick Batum, Kemba Walker, and everyone else on that roster. And I will say, if the Hornets do trade for Bradley Beal, first off, I'd be ecstatic for Kemba Walker since he now actually has some help on the offensive end, and also they'd be a good team in the Eastern Conference. I think they could approach that 50-win mark in the Eastern Conference with the help of Bradley Beal. However, at the same time, I wouldn't be too optimistic about this trade if it did go down, because I think then the Charlotte Hornets would kind of become the Eastern Conference version of the Portland Trailblazers, as in they're a really good regular season team, one of the most dynamic backcourts in the NBA, no question about it. You look at the Portland Trailblazers right now and they're contending for the #1 seed in the Western Conference. The thing is, we all know that once playoff time comes around, because the Portland Trailblazers aren't deep enough, they don't have that third star, there's no way that they'll be able to compete with the actual powerhouses out in the Western Conference. And the Hornets, with Bradley Beal and Kemba Walker, will be stuck in the exact same situation. They'd be a great regular season team, but once the playoffs start, there's no way they're getting out of a 7-game series against the Celtics, Raptors, Sixers, Pacers, or Bucks alive. That being said, I'm not going to say that Charlotte going after Bradley Beal is a bad thing. I think it's a good thing just because they're doing something, and them doing something, taking a step in any direction at all, is better than what they've been doing for the past few years. And lastly, for the news portion of this video, we have yet another update on this Markelle Fultz situation. As after yesterday, when we got reports saying that Fultz's agents have instructed him to stop participating in practices and games until he sees a shoulder specialist, we got reports later last night saying that the Philadelphia 76ers didn't even have a clue that there was anything wrong with the shoulder of Markelle Fultz. Elton Brand said there's been no indication that there's been anything medically wrong with Markelle Fultz's shoulder that should keep him off the court, either leading up to or during the season. And Brett Brown said this is the first time that he learned that Markelle Fultz was having problems with his shoulder too. Asked Brett Brown if Markelle Fultz had been communicating with them throughout the season about anything specific with his shoulder, and he said, not really, it's kind of the first real sort of red flag. So clearly, there's a disconnect between Markelle Fultz's agents and the Philadelphia 76ers organization. The agents have been saying that Markelle Fultz has been dealing with shoulder problems all year long and want to shut him down for now until they figure them out, while the Philadelphia 76ers are saying, we had no idea, we thought he was perfectly fine. And because of this, I'm actually starting to think the exact opposite of what I said yesterday. I said yesterday that I believe that Markelle Fultz's agents were now sitting out Fultz, were making this public, so no teams would be trying to trade for Markelle Fultz. His agent thought he was about to get traded, so like, we're gonna shut that down, make it so that no team really wants to trade for Markelle Fultz. But now, because of the reports that we just got, this to me is starting to sound a little bit similar to the Kawhi Leonard situation from last year. You remember how there was a big rift, a big disagreement between the Spurs organization and Kawhi Leonard's management that resulted in Kawhi Leonard sitting out because his management said there was still something wrong while the Spurs thought he was perfectly fine. Really sounds like the same thing is going on with Markelle Fultz here, and if that's the angle that Markelle Fultz's agent is taking, it more than likely means that he's trying to convince the Sixers that Markelle Fultz is going to sit out until he's traded, and that does actually make sense because the Sixers are headed in a direction that's not favorable for the long-term career of Markelle Fultz. And if they're not looking to trade Markelle Fultz, then it could damage Markelle Fultz's value in the future. By the time he's ready to sign his contract extension, he's not going to be developed enough to get a max contract, and also it's going to hurt him trying to get any brand deals, things like that, which is going to cost agent money and of course Markelle Fultz money too. That does it for the news portion of this video though. So before we get into the quick game recaps from last night, and if you don't care about the game recaps, so you don't need the game recaps from last night, then consider subscribing to the channel so you can stay up to date with everything that goes on in the NBA news-wise. I'd really appreciate it. And also, if this is where you get off, then I'll see you right back here tomorrow for some more NBA news. But for the rest of you that do need the game recaps, let's get into those. The Washington Wizards took on the LA Clippers last night amidst all of their dysfunction, and that dysfunction showed up big time in the first quarter for the Wizards as they found themselves down 40-21 after one. After that though, things did start getting better for Washington, and in the second half specifically, John Wall and Bradley Beal came alive to give Washington the comeback 125-118 win over LA. Wall with 30 on the night while Beal added 27. Next up was the Toronto Raptors versus the Orlando Magic, and I have to give props to Orlando for being competitive this year. I keep waiting for them to be bad again, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case as they put up a great fight with the Raptors last night, but in the end came up a bit short as Danny Green hit a jumper with half a second left to go to get Toronto the 93-91 win. The Miami Heat still haven't been able to get themselves on track as they lose once again, this time to the Brooklyn Nets 104-92. Miami now just 6-11 on the year, so they might have to start doing some soul searching and ask whether or not this should be the season that they too, like the Wizards, decide to blow this thing up. And lastly, the Portland Trail Blazers maintained their standing atop the Western Conference with a 118-114 win over the New York Knicks. The duo of Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum combining for 60 points on the night. Tim Hardaway Jr. though has still been one of the most underrated players so far this season with yet another high scoring game of 32 points. And that is going to bring us to the player of the day, where you guys have the opportunity to vote for who you think was the best player in the league last night by clicking the little eye icon in the top right hand corner of your video. Just remember though, the only players whose team won are eligible to win player of the day. And yesterday, that award went to Kemba Walker with his 43 points and 6 assists in the Hornets win over the Boston Celtics. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for watching though, guys. If you made it this far in the video, then I really do appreciate it. You guys already know that you are the real MVPs. Anyways though, hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day or night whenever you're watching this, and until tomorrow, I'm out of here. Peace!